Hello, everyone. My name is Monica. I'm the community manager at the Village Hive Duncan Mill located in North York. And today we have our fabulous speaker, Sarah, who is back for the second time. I'm so excited. She had a really great presentation last time, and it is on our YouTube channel that I'll be sending to everyone later on. But today we're going to talk about how to, use conflict for good. And we appreciate everyone that's come on. When you have a chance to come on, if you don't mind just putting in the chat how you heard about us and where you're located, where you're zooming in from, that would be great because we've had people from all over the world. But just to give you a little bit blurb about our co-working spaces, because sometimes people are not quite sure what that means. And it's basically working in a shared space with others, whether they are entrepreneurs or remote workers. So it gives you an opportunity to kind of think out of the box because you get a different perspective of perhaps chatting with somebody about maybe you're an entrepreneur and you have a problem and you're just trying to figure out how to solve it. And instead of always talking to the same group of people, you're like, oh, I never even thought about that. So that's a really great opportunity for you to meet others and network with other people and get an idea of maybe just a different solution. So we have the Village Hive co-working and meeting space. We have actually 3 locations now. Charlotte Kirby, who sends her regrets that she couldn't be on the call today, Sarah, she was the founder of the Village Hive in Markham, historic Markham Village. And she started that in 2016 after, working from home and no one was there to laugh at her jokes. And she was just, you get lonely, right? If you're working from home and there's no one there to talk to or even celebrate victories or something like that. So she came across this co-working concept and decided there was this amazing historic school located in Markham Village. So she opened up a co-working space there and partnered with somebody in 2020. Yeah, 2020, I have to get these pandemic years in my head. Partnered with someone for 2020 so we could open the Duncan Mill North York location, and that's where I am. And we have private offices. We have a shared open workspace for people that rent desks for the day or for a monthly membership. We have meeting space. I have a podcast room. I brag about that. I know Mitch is very jealous, but I have a podcast room here. I have free parking here. And it's a really great opportunity for companies to come in or organizations to come in and they rent the meeting space and private offices if that's what they're looking for. And Mitch, who is at our Yonge and Eglinton location, so the Village Hive Eglinton, we opened that in March of this year because we love a challenge. So Mitch has a really great space and we're building really great communities in all 3 locations. So that's the thing that we always say, come for the workspace, stay for the community. And most people that come in just to test us out for a day or for a few hours, they get addicted. So I'm really excited to be working here and helping grow this. And because during the pandemic, we could only do basically virtual community building. That's why we came up with this lunch and learn idea. So without further ado, I wanted to introduce you to Sarah, who will be talking about how to handle conflict and use it for the good. So take it away, Sarah.
Thank you very much. Just let me come to screen share for a moment. And hopefully I can find my, there it is. Sorry, I guess I should put my glasses on. Sorry about that, everybody. Totally blind, but thank you very much for joining. My name is Sarah Gayer. I'm, for those of you who don't know me or remember me from my last webinar that I was on, I'm a human resource consultant and chartered mediator. So I get involved in many areas of conflict, whether it's in the workplace or personal. They would call upon me if it's personal or even the workplace to come and handle conflict either between 2 people, a group of people, or a team of people, and then hopefully come to some sort of resolution. I chose this title because conflict is good. Okay. People, when I say that, they look at me and go, what? Conflict is good because it brings things to the surface. So instead of letting it stew inside you, it brings it up. The problem is how we handle it once we become aware that there is a conflict. Sometimes we don't even know there's a conflict. We can't figure out what's going on. So if we keep it bottled up, it just stews in there and become even worse than if we had brought it out and said something to the other person or the group of people that we are having. You don't have to use the word conflict, but we've got a problem or an issue, and let's have a discussion. Okay? So understanding that conflict is good, it brings things to the surface. The problem is how we handle it. Okay, and so we're going to talk this afternoon about the different ways that people handle the conflict, and what techniques and tools we can take away with to make sure that our conflict is, shall we say, successful. So what are we going to cover in this session? We're going to discuss, there's 5 conflict strategies, 5 ways to handle a conflict. You're going, what? Because most of us handle a conflict the same way every time. Think about it. Think about conflicts you've been in recently. I guarantee you probably handle it the same way because we're used to it. We know what the outcome's going to be. So as soon as we find ourselves in the conflict, we use the same style all the time. Identify and describe your preferred style for resolving conflict. I'm going to have you do an exercise to have you understand what is your conflict style. And then maybe that will give you a better insight into why not all your conflicts come out positive and good. Describe a benefit and disadvantage of each of the conflict strategies. One strategy is not better than the other. It all depends on the outcome you're looking for. And then also tools for addressing conflict. So in the chat, what words come to mind when you think of conflict? So if you can just go to the chat, when you hear the word conflict, what comes to your mind? What's there? Drama, stress, great, Yinka. Disagreement. Anybody else? Uneasiness, great. All negative words. Anybody else? Misunderstanding, definitely, Mary. Think about it. What comes to your mind when you hear the word, oh, a pit in your stomach? Wow. Okay. Anybody else? So for most people, as you can see from the chat, conflict is negative. It's a bad thing. It's awful. It's horrible. It's something I don't want to be involved in. But you can't get away from it. Well, you can, but it doesn't resolve the situation at all. So what is conflict? We need to define, what does conflict really mean? Because the word conflict can mean different things to different people. It's a process that begins when one party perceives, and remember, perception is a person's reality. It may not be what's happening, but in their mind, this is what's happened, that the other party has negatively affected or is about to negatively affect something that is important to the first party. It can be perceived. It's something that I believe, I assume, I feel, or it can be felt. And it may be something that you don't actually act upon or is evident to you at a particular moment. So remember, in order for conflict to take place, one party has to perceive that the other party is going to negatively affect something that is important to them. So that's like when if somebody takes your computer without asking you, and you're really, really upset because you needed that computer. What are you going to do? Well, I can tell you're going to walk right over to them, and I'll be able to tell by your body language that you're not very happy. Probably grab the laptop, say a few choice words, and walk away. Have you now created a bigger conflict? Yes, you have. Because it's still there even when you walk away. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat. Okay, and we'll go through them. It's important for you to participate. So the goal of conflict is not to eliminate conflict, but to use it, to understand what caused the conflict, why is there conflict, and then trying to resolve it to the best of both parties. Okay, so you can see here we have 2 individuals in conflict. You can tell one individual is not very happy with the other individual, pointing a finger right in their face. The other individual is starting to back away because they don't feel safe or comfortable. And the end result, hopefully, will be that they will shake hands. That doesn't always happen, but that is an end result that we hope we can accomplish at some point. Conflict is part of life. From the time you're small to the time for the rest of your life, conflict is there. It's part of your life. It's in your personal life, from when you're growing up to when you're an adult to when you're grandparents. Also, it's in your work life, whether you're a manager, you're a coworker, an employee. It's there all the time. We cannot get away from it. And we need to understand that conflict is part of life, and we need to learn how to handle that so that our life runs smoother. So is conflict inevitable? Yes. But what's optional, how you choose to handle it is up to you. Do you like to fight, have a combat like to the death? Do you choose to fight that person, argue with them, prove that you are right and they're always wrong? Or do you sit down together, or even, try to resolve it in a friendly manner? Some people like the combat. It gets them excited. They like the thrill. I'm going to annihilate you. I'm going to win at any cost. Other people, a little bit more level-headed. Okay, we've got our issue here. Let's sit down and talk about it, or get together over coffee tomorrow, whatever, and have a discussion. So go back and take a look at how you have handled conflicts in the past. Did you like the combat, the fight? It made your adrenaline rush? Or did you choose to try and resolve whatever the issue was? Or do you just walk away? That's also one way of resolving it. So what I'd like you to do is take a piece of paper and pencil, and how have you handled conflict in the past? So think about a recent time when you were involved in a conflict. It can be personal, it can be work, it doesn't really matter. And no conflict is minor, because it is a conflict. So just briefly, quickly write down a summary of the conflict. Who was it with? What was it about? And then did you achieve your desired outcome from that conflict? Don't take too much time thinking about the particulars. Just respond to those questions in a brief format, because we're going to use this information as we go along. And if you have any comments or questions, just put them into the chat, please. Okay, I'll give you another couple of minutes. Now that you've had to think about a conflict that you were recently involved, and you actually put it down on paper so that you could see it, has anything jumped to your mind? Has anything come out of it? Anything that you're going, oh, anybody?
Hello?
Because yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I would just say it's just a reminder to myself that at times I avoid the conflict. I don't pretend that it's not there, but
Okay.
I just avoid.
And why do you avoid dealing with it, Anne-Marie?
Probably because I don't want to expand my energy on a negative situation. I really try to stay positive, and at times it only escalates. It has this situation, and it's yeah.
So you're an
mediator at that. And I'm
yes, I noticed that. Yes, you and I will have to have a talk. Yes. So Lisa Marie's conflict style, if you want, or strategy, is to avoid. So if conflict attacks her, as we say, she just turns around and walks away and ignores it and pretends it never happens. But has the conflict gone away? No, it hasn't. It's still there. It's still there, even though it's, it might not be evident to others, but it's still festering in the person that, shall we say, started the conflict, and the person who was supposed to be the receiver who avoided, which makes the other person even madder because you're not addressing this. You're not paying any attention to how they feel. And so it grows and grows. I can give you a personal example with my sister. So something happened between me and my sister. I'm not going to go into details. I didn't talk to my sister for probably 5 years. It helps because she lives in another city, so it wasn't that bad. But then one day I sat down, I'm going, you know what, this is ridiculous. This conflict was over something that was so stupid, but she started it, not me, right? She started it. And so I'm going, wow, this is not worth it. My relationship is more important with her than this stupid conflict that has broken us up. So I reached out to her, and ever since then, things have been fine. But if I hadn't done that, we would never have spoken. And then what would I have missed out on by not having a relationship with her? So it's something to think about. So what is your conflict approach? So based on the scenario that you have written down, the conflict you're recently involved, let's take a look at the different approaches or conflict handling styles. So one is competing, my way or the highway. What I want is more important than you want. And I don't care the impact on you. I'm going to get what I want. Okay. Collaborating, win-win. This is a great situation you want to be in. This is where each party listens to each other. They sit down, listen to each other, actually listen what each party wants or needs. And then they have hopefully a conversation going on and collaborating. So in collaboration, it's a win-win. You may not get everything you want or need, but you can live with what you've agreed to. So collaborating, listening to each other, understanding what both sides or all the parties' needs and wants are, and how are we going to make it work? How are we going to be able to live together, work together, whatever the situation is? How are you going to continue being my customer? Because I don't want to lose you. You're important to me. So how are we going to address this situation or this problem or this issue that you have? So that's collaboration. Is it the best way to handle a conflict? It all depends. Okay. The best people, the people who know how to use all 5 conflicts, handle conflict the best way. But as I said at the beginning, we all have one style that we normally use 100%. And that's what, a lot of times, what gets us in trouble, because the situation may require a different type of approach. And we don't know that because we're only used to one approach. A third approach is avoiding. I'll get back to you later. That's, you know what? I don't have time for this right now. Why don't we get together later on and talk about it, or send me an email. I'll read it and then I'll get back to you. Okay. I'll get back to you later, whatever. It doesn't really matter. What am I saying? I'm removing myself from the conflict, but I'm also telling the other person that their issue or problem or whatever it is not important to me. Because if it was, then I would give my attention to them to hear what they have to say, and we'd have a conversation. But avoiding, sometimes you do have to avoid, walk away, think about it, and then maybe come back. Sometimes you may put your hands up and say, whatever, I like to do that, whatever, just turn around and walk away. Okay, so everybody has their ways. The next style is accommodating. It would be my pleasure to do that. I'm sure you all know somebody like that. Whatever you want. Oh, of course, you want 150,000 copies of that page. I'll do it for you. Not a problem. Oh, it's okay. I'll stay late at work to do it. Not a problem. So you're coming for dinner. That's great. So you want to have all these different dishes for dinner? Not a problem. I'll make them all for you. It's my pleasure. Anything to make you happy or to please you. Not a problem. I'm sure you all know somebody like that. It's great because you get whatever you want, but okay. So what's the other person doing is, instead of them saying to you, well, I really don't have time to do all that photocopying. Can I do it tomorrow, or can I get some help, or ask some, so-and-so and so-and-so to help me do it, and maybe they can do it because I'm just too busy right now. We say, sure. You can say that's another form of avoiding the conflict by being, shall we say, nice to a person. I mean, it's great if you could find someone like that who never says no. You're just laughing all the way to wherever you're, to your office or to your room or whatever, because they're doing everything. Not a problem. Do you have a family member when you get together for dinner and there's maybe 20 of you at the dinner table and everybody walks out of the dining room, and one person always stays to clean up because everybody knows they're going to do it. And they say, "My pleasure. It's okay. Don't worry about it. I'll clean up. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it." And we smile and we walk away, go, "That's great. She's going to do all the work. Oh, I love it." And then compromising. Just the word compromise, a lot of people take it to be negative. It's not negative. Compromise is not a negative. Even though it says lose-lose, it's not really a lose-lose. It can turn into a win-win. So in compromise, you're prepared. So let's say we're negotiating, okay? I'm negotiating with Mitch for an office space that I want to rent for a year, okay, at the Hive. And I'm negotiating with him. And he says, "Well, this is what we charge, this and this, and this." And I say, "Yeah, but with my work schedule, this, and I'm going to need access to this and this." And Mitch says, "No, this is the way it is, and we can't change it." And I say, "Well, can you help me out here? I really want to rent an office here. I really want to use your space. I've heard a lot of great things about the Hive, and I really want to be part of it, your little community. So Mitch, what can you do?" So Mitch says, "Okay." So he's willing to give something up. Okay, so he's compromising. He's willing to give something up. But maybe the expectation is also that I give up on one of my requirements or demands. So it is, even though it says it's a lose-lose, it's not a lose-lose unless you're the person doing all the compromising. You're giving everything up and the other person isn't losing anything and giving anything up. But if both parties are prepared to give something up to make this work, then it's a win-win for everybody. But if one party just takes, the other person gives, then that is a lose-lose for both, except a person that gets what they want doesn't think they've lost. So compromise has a negative, shall we say, definition, but it's really not negative, okay, unless it's used for evil and not for good, as we say. So questions or comments about the different styles? Are you beginning to understand what is your major conflict handling style as we're going through these 5 different handling styles? Anybody? Anybody want to share with what they think is their style, or it's too early yet?
Yeah, no, I get a pretty solid feeling on where I stand. Yeah, no, if we go back a slide,
if I go, okay.
I used to be very, very accommodating. It would be my pleasure person.
Nice.
And also sometimes in combination with avoiding.
Okay.
Now that's been getting a bit better.
Good.
I moved a bit towards the second point, where the win-win.
Okay, good. Okay, being more collaborating. Great, good.
Yeah.
See, once you understand your conflict style, then you understand why you end up with the results you do at the end of a conflict. And you can work on trying to change it. It's not easy because you have to keep reminding yourself before you actually engage in a conflict or become part of a conflict and moving towards changing that style. If you're not careful, you always go back to your original style of handling conflict. That's great. I'm glad to hear that. But I like people who are overly accommodating. They make my day. It's great. Good. Anybody else like to share what they think their conflict style is or has been in the past? There's nothing wrong with these styles. Understand that. I mean, these are the styles that a person can use. And is one better than the other? And I always say, depends on the situation that you find yourself in. You may be a compromiser, but then you find yourself in a situation, in a certain conflict, where you may become an avoider, just walking away, it's not worth it. Or maybe you fight to the death because you're not going to give in. It could be unusual for you to behave that way, to react that way, but it does happen. So if we look at the dimensions of how we handle conflict, so here are the 5 conflict approaches, if you want, or how we handle conflict. Down here on the axis, we have cooperating. How cooperative are you, or the parties are, from low to high. Then we have assertiveness. Now, assertiveness always has a negative connotation, but it's not always negative to be assertive. That just means you want to get your point across, but it's how assertive you become, the emotions that are attached to it. So we go from low to high. So you can see here, avoider, very low in assertiveness, very low in cooperation. They just turn around and walk away. Competing, I'm going to fight you to the death. Low cooperation, not working together, but high assertiveness, high aggression, high emotions. As we move along the axis here, accommodating. High cooperative, very cooperative, but low assertiveness. If we move up here, collaborating, high cooperative, we work well, we want to work together, and high assertiveness, let's sit down and talk about it and see what we can come up with. Compromising is in the middle. So in the middle of being cooperative, in the middle of being assertive. As I mentioned to you earlier, there's nothing wrong in compromising, but if that's your only style, then people will take advantage of you. So you have to be careful also. So you have to know when to give in. You have to understand what is important to you. What do you really want to take away from this? And how far are you prepared to go in getting what you want or need? Those are some of the questions you need to ask yourself. So what I always recommend is that when you find yourself in a conflict after it's ended, or maybe it hasn't ended, and you walk away, sit down, get a coffee, a tea, sit down and think about it. Actually take some paper or your computer and write down what happened while it's still fresh in your mind. What happened? What did he do? How did he look? How did you react? How did you feel? Very important to do that and do an analysis. And did it end the way you wanted it to end or needed it to end? Or did it end in a way that you did not, support? And what would you do differently next time you find yourself in a similar conflict? This is the way, by doing, analysis and evaluating how we handled the conflict, what it was, we become better at it. We understand more. And as we progress through various conflicts, we are better equipped to handle them. So go back to your example, okay, that you wrote out at the beginning. Write down what was your conflict style that you believe that you used. It's okay, you don't have to share this with anyone unless you want to. Another question is, do you believe your conflict outcome was wise? Was it based on careful thought and judgment? Or did you just jump because you were overly emotional? So just write down a few words. And then, did you maintain a relationship with the person or persons you were in conflict with? So did you maintain a relationship with the person or persons that you were in conflict with? So my next question to you would be, was it important for you to maintain a relationship with that person or the other people that you were in contact with? Okay. Was it important for you to maintain the relationship with the person or the people that you found yourself in conflict with? Why do I ask that? Because if it's important for you to maintain a relationship, ongoing relationship with that person or those people, then you will need to possibly handle conflict differently. Okay? Because not all of these conflict approaches or styles will allow you to maintain a relationship with the people or persons that you're in conflict with. Okay? So for example, if it's a customer and it's a good customer that comes into your business, you want to maintain the relationship with them. So when you find yourself in conflict with them, how are you going to handle it? Especially if you want that relationship to remain. If you don't care, then you can just go at them, go berserk like Rambo, and then they leave and you never see them again. But if you can't afford that, then how are you going to handle the conflict? Okay? That's another important question to ask, is the importance of the relationship with the person or the other people. It's no different than I've done mediations with couples who are splitting. Okay. And that's a question that I ask each one of them. How important is it for the two, you to maintain a relationship with this person and this person to maintain a relationship going forward because you have children? If it's important to both of you, then let's have that conversation on how we are going to be able to maintain that relationship. If it's not important to them, then the conversation goes in a different direction. So conflict, the problem. So different ways to handle the conflict. So which one is the best style to handle the conflict? You have to know what is the outcome you want from this conflict. What's the end result? Okay. So if we handle a conflict this way, this is going to be the end result. But this is not the end result I want. So I need to handle a conflict this way to get the end result that I want. So you're saying, well, Sarah, a lot of times I find myself in a conflict, but I didn't plan it. So how can I decide what outcome I want? Well, how emotional do you get? Okay, because when emotions take over, we say and do things that we normally wouldn't say or do. Can you control your emotions? Can you think while this is going on, or ask maybe to take a break, go to the washroom or whatever and think about it and then come back? Okay. Or do you have to be in that, in that conflict like this, just going at each other? Because if you do, then you might not get the outcome you're looking for or hoping for. So just looking at the different styles and when you can use them the best way. So competing is forcing. I win, you lose. Haha. It's like in sports, only one of the two teams can win, and they both play so that only one of them scores the most points and wins. So this is where we're in. Competing is forcing. I win, you lose. Haha. I feel good. You feel bad. I don't care. I get what I want. To use competing in emergencies, when you don't have a lot of time, you have to make decisions that other people aren't going to like, and you have to force it upon them. When the situations, the issues are important and you know it's right, that you are right. Okay, you know that you're on the right path. This is the right process. This is how we handle this problem. This is how we do this project. You know you're right. And so we're forcing our views and opinions on other people. We want them to see it our way. And also, we can use competing or forcing against people who take advantage of us, especially when we're accommodating. Okay, we could use competing against them, the people that take advantage of us. So competing is I win, you lose, but we have to understand in what type of situations do we have to use that? When it's important, when it's an emergency, when you know that this is the right answer, then you have to become forceful. The other parties may not appreciate it, but this is the only way. And especially if you don't have time to have a conversation, you can say to them, we'll meet after this, and then I'll explain to you why I said it had to be done this way. Collaborating, problem solving, let's do it together. Let's sit around the table, hold hands and talk. Sorry, shouldn't be so sarcastic, but it's being collaborative, sitting across the table and talking it through. This is where both parties or all parties come to the table, and what they bring to the table is important. So if you think about world leaders or government, they come together. They have important issues. All of them have important concerns. They all want to be heard, and everybody's concern is more important than the other's concerns. So we need to sit down and problem solve. How are we going to handle this? How are we going to make this work? And also to gain consensus. So whatever is agreed upon, all parties can live with, but they may not get everything that they're looking for. And it also keeps the relationship intact. Okay. It keeps the relationship intact. Once again, how important is that relationship to be maintained? That's the question to ask yourself. Because if you don't care, then go back and just, I win, you lose. Avoiding conflict? What conflict? There's no conflict here. There's nothing wrong with us. No, just because I'm not talking to her or him, that's fine. I don't have anything to say to them, so why should I talk to them? Well, I noticed that when they walk into the room, you walk out. Oh, no, I have other things to do. I don't have time to stay, so I go back into my office and do my work. No, there's no conflict here. When the issue is not important, but one party believes the issue is important, the other party may not think it is important. So what's the conflict? No problem. When you know that addressing the conflict isn't going to accomplish anything, you might know the person or the people involved, and you know there's no way they're going to help you or give in or even partially give in to you into your demands or requests. Why bother? Okay, why waste your time? And also, by causing an uproar, by having this conflict, by, maybe, I win, you lose, is it worth it? Remember, what about the relationship? And also avoiding walking away is also a good way to think about what happened. Just say, turn my back, or we'll talk about this later. Walk away, think about it, take a pad and paper or a pen, write it out, think it through, or on your computer, think it through, cool down, let the emotions go down, have a coffee, tea, go for a walk, whatever. Then go back to the person or the people and have that conversation. You're cooled down, you're cool-headed now, you have a plan, you know exactly how to handle this. The odds are that the end result will be a result that both parties can live with. So there's nothing wrong with avoiding unless this is the only conflict style that you use. And then people will take advantage of you because they'll get what they want and you won't be heard. Questions or comments, anybody? Okay. Accommodating. Whatever you want, that's fine with me. Sometimes I say that because it's not worth getting into a discussion with the person. Can't be bothered. When you find you're wrong, you don't want to admit you're wrong. So you say, sure, whatever you want. And the person goes, oh, to show you're reasonable, you're not going to get into argument because you know you're wrong. So this is the way to save face. When the issues are more important to the other person than to you, whatever, it's okay. It's not important to me, right? It's not important to me. It's important to the other person, so I don't care. Has nothing to do with me, so I'm just going to walk away. So when I walk away, people go, oh, or I'm sorry, not walk away, but get whatever you want, you can have. People like that. They want to maintain a relationship with you because life is good. It's peaceful and it's stable. So a lot of my, I've had friends or I've known people in relationships who one side of the relationship is very accommodating. And the other person goes, wow, he or she is so wonderful. We never have an argument. Life is good. Well, you never have an argument because the other person is always giving you what you want because they don't want to argue with you. It's not worth it to them. And so accommodating, whatever you want, you can have. And there's nothing wrong in using that style when it fits the situation. And then compromising. Let's meet halfway. Okay. This is where the goals are important. Whatever you want to accomplish, do. But by being assertive, aggressive, you're not going to get anywhere. Okay. So this is where we have goals. They could be the same goals, or maybe some of the goals are different that we want to accomplish. And so let's sit down and talk about it. Okay. Let's agree to not disagree. Okay. So in the meantime, why don't you go ahead and do this and I'll go ahead and do this. Then we'll get together later on and have a conversation as to where we go from here. Okay. Also, if you have issues that need to be addressed by a time frame, maybe it has a time frame. By 5 o'clock tonight, this has to be addressed. Well, then by 5 o'clock tonight, if you know that it has to be done, then you're going to have to sit down together and come to some compromise. Let's meet halfway. because you don't have time to hash things out, to go through things, do analysis, whatever needs to be done. It has to be decided on or handled by 5 o'clock today. Okay, so let's meet halfway. You do this, I'll do that. I'll give this up, I'll give that up. When I'm doing labor negotiations with the union, this is a lot of what we do. We'll meet each other halfway, because then we get to the negotiations a lot faster, and both parties are okay with it because they will get some of what they want and they can live with that and take it back to the membership or to management. So compromise, nothing wrong with that. What's the situation? Is it under time constraints? And also, is the relationship worth maintaining? So outcomes of conflict can be positive, functional, constructive, or negative, dysfunctional, and destructive. So for conflict to be positive and constructive, when it results in clarification of important problems and issues, when it brings it to the surface, a problem or issue, it results in a solution to that problem or issue. There's a resolution, an agreement. It involves people in resolving issues that are important to them. You're not focusing on everybody else's problems. You're focusing only on your own issues or problems. Also, it causes people to actually sit down and talk to each other, with each other, and listen to each other, because maybe that's something they really haven't done before. It also, when it's positive conflict, the emotions are down. People aren't stressed out. They're not worried, okay, because it's positive, it's going in the right direction. And also, it maintains the relationship with the other people or person, because you begin to learn more about each other and understand each other and what's important to each other, so that next time if something were to happen, you have a better idea on how to approach each other and address certain issues or problems. So positive, a lot of positive results come out of conflict when it's handled properly. Now, the destructive or negative side is when it takes attention away from important activities. So, we have all these issues, or people, what we call dirt bagging, start bringing this in and start bringing this in and start bringing this in, and you lose focus on what it was important. Okay, you're throwing everything in, including the kitchen sink, hoping something will stick, and nothing will, because you've lost focus on what was important. Also, it undermines morale. People get discouraged, frustrated, and that leads to other actions on their part. Also, it breaks people apart. Okay, so instead of bringing people together, negative or destructive conflict breaks them apart, and they won't cooperate. So think about it in workplace relationships or work relationships or even personal relationships where that's happened. Okay, and have you got together with those people again? How is your working relationship, your personal relationship within them? And also, when conflict is negative and destructive, you start to see things. There's a lot of differences. You start picking start picking about things about that other person or people. Oh, they this, they did that, they did this. Every little thing all of a sudden is blown up. Okay, and also a lot of fighting. I mean, maybe physical fighting, but verbal abuse, verbal fighting, verbal abuse, name calling. Somebody poking the other person. Are we allowed to do that these days? No. Sending nasty emails, in the lunchroom, talking about the other person or people to others, and then causing, bad behavior or bad feelings from those people to the other people. So you got to understand the impact that negative conflict can result in. And if that's your goal, that's fine. But really, we don't need negative conflict. We need positive, constructive conflict that we can use to our advantage, if you want, to maintain that relationship and cooperation. Very important. So what are some of the tips for breaking this cycle? Okay, what are some of the tips in breaking the cycle? Oh, so great style when parroting. Okay, sorry, I should have read this. Where would you categorize understanding? This is what I try to do first and foremost, and depending on the actual conflict and whom it is with, I do deal with conflict differently. So Lisa Marie says it's a good question. If you have an opportunity while you're in the conflict to step back and try to understand where that person is coming from, that's great. if you don't have the time to understand where they're coming from, you may just say, you know what, I'm sorry, but can we pick this up later? Or use excuse of going to the washroom or whatever and coming back. That gives you an opportunity to try and figure out what is going on, if you have that. Otherwise, if you don't have the time, it's let the other person or people talk, and then use the time to listen, actively listen to what they are saying. Watch the body language, the tone of their voice, very important. A lot of times body language will tell you more than the words. Also listen to the kind of words they're using. Very important. Great question. So some tips. Conflict is part of life. It's not going away. I tell people you can go live at the top of the mountain, but eventually conflict will find you there too. So it's a normal part of your life. It's not going away, and we need to learn how to handle it. And not everybody will agree with you 100% of the time. And do we want them to? Okay, I guess we do, but not everybody, and you will not always get what you want or get your way all the time. Okay, so you may find yourself in conflict that you don't want anything to do with. How are you going to handle it? Okay, and also humans are emotional, and I always say, get over it, move on, manage the conflict rather than avoid it. Even though I say there will be times when you're better off just turning around and walking away from the conflict, but you have to come back to it at some point. You have to learn how to manage the conflict, okay? You have to move towards the conflict instead of walking away from it. Because when you move towards the conflict and you have that conversation with the other person or people, it actually will strengthen your relationship. Why? Because you're sitting there now talking with each other, not to each other, but with you're talking with each other and you're being heard. And that's what a lot of people just want. They just want to be heard. So give them that opportunity to be heard by you. And that will help the conflict and the situation. Know yourself. What's your personality? Are you an extrovert, an introvert? Because that will also tell how you will handle conflict. What are your hot buttons? If you have children, I guarantee you, they know what your hot buttons are to get what they want. Okay, think about it. Your child wants something, how do they get it? And you just, do they start something with you and all of a sudden you say, okay, whatever you want, go get, go, whatever. And they walk away and laugh to themselves, haha, got what I wanted, haha. So what are your hot buttons? Make a list. Okay, so what are your hot buttons? And also, make a list of what your hot buttons are. Take a moment and manage your emotions. How do you manage your emotions? Okay, how do you manage your emotions? How do you control your emotions? Or do you just let your emotions get the better of you? Okay, how do you do that? Most people, because for most people, when we react, when we become emotional, we don't think about it. Oh, I'm going to laugh now. I'm going to get angry now. It just happens. It's spontaneous. So manage your emotions, keep them under control. When you feel yourself getting, stressed or tightening up your body and that tells you something. What do you have to do in that situation? Think win-win. Win-win doesn't always mean I win, you lose, ha ha. Win-win means that whatever you have come to decision, whatever your resolution is, that you can both live with it, you can work together, you have built a stronger foundation for a relationship to work together. And also your needs are being met because both sides feel comfortable in approaching the other side about whatever the issue is or whatever they want to talk about. So it's definitely a way of improving your relationship. Think win-win for all sides. Learning to deal with conflict, learning the differences, understand, why is that person acting that way? Why is that person saying that? Understand there are a lot of differences between you and the other person or people. Some of them could be values, what's important to them or you. Motivation, what motivates you? What drives you? You could be a very driven person and the other person could be very laid back. That will cause conflict. Ideas, different ways of doing things, different ways of making decisions and seeing things, desires, needs, perceptions. I could have two people look at the same thing and they can describe it totally different. Okay. And also opinions. We all have our opinion. Sometimes some people have too many opinions and they don't know when to stop. And that also causes conflict. So if you want to maintain a relationship and you don't want to further damage a relationship with that person, then you need to come up with a way of handling that conflict. And also try not to become defensive. Okay, because that means fight. Do not become defensive. Try not to take what they say personally or do personally. Okay, because if you do, then they got you. Strategy. Have a strategy. So if you have to deal with someone, you have a meeting with someone, you have an appointment with someone, or you know you're going to run into a particular person and you've had meetings with them, situations with them before, step back and sit down and say, okay, I'm going to meet so-and-so, or I'm going to run into so-and-so. I need this from them or this to happen or whatever. What's the best strategy, the best way to handle this? So have a plan. Think about it. Even do some role playing with yourself. Okay. What resources are available to you? Do you have enough information? Maybe you need to take another person with you. Do you have somebody to support you? Okay. Look at what resources you're going to need and then put a plan together and think always win-win. How is this going to turn out to be a win-win because the relationship is important? If it's not important, then your strategy will be different, right? Interests versus positions. Understand what you need, not just want and what the other party needs, not just wants. What criteria needs to be met? For example, I'll give you the example before, time frames. Okay, if there's a time frame, then we will have to move along. We don't have a lot of time to collaborate. We need to make a decision now. And then what are the difference of opinions? Brainstorming, sitting down, asking questions of each other, listening to each other, getting a whiteboard, putting the solutions and responses on the whiteboard and then reviewing them. Be patient. Not everything is going to come exactly the way you want it. Cool down. If you're angry, take a deep breath. Get a cup of coffee. Go for a walk. Come back. Even if it's going to be 24 hours later, do it. If you can give that much time. Be honest. Be honest to the person. Tell them exactly what you're thinking and feeling. But it's the way you're going to do it. Don't get, yell or emotional. Be calm, but be honest. At this point, what's the point of not telling the truth? And don't label the problem. If you caused a problem or the other problem, it was caused by somebody else. Don't label it. Talk about the problem, but don't put a label on it. Okay? Be honest. Be specific. What exactly is the issue here? Help me. I always say to people, help me understand what is the issue here. Active listening. I always say to people, are you listening? Did you hear what I say? Oh, yeah. Well, tell me what I said. That's not active listening. Giving your full attention to the other person or people. What are they saying? Listen very closely. And then ask questions. And then I always summarize. So from what I understand, you're saying this is this and this. Is that correct? If it is, they'll say yes. If not, then they'll correct you. But at least you're showing them that you have listened to them. Understand, then understood. Take the time to see the other person's point of view. If you're overly emotional, then you're not going to see their point of view. You only see your point of view. So listen, hear their concerns, understand where they're coming from, even if you don't agree. Once you understand where they're coming from, now you're in a position to have a discussion with them. And then working through to accomplish some kind of agreement. Be open-minded. A lot of times we come in with a closed mind. We already know what we want and we're not going to give in, and that's it. Or we don't like this person because this and this and this. And so when we walk in already, we've already a mindset where we don't like them. Okay. So be open-minded. Listen to them. Improve yourself. Become a better communicator. So for example, when you approach me that way, I will react this way, whatever it's going to be, because those are the reasons why. So I have a request. Next time you need to speak with me, I would appreciate if you would. Okay. So now you're telling them you're telling them what they've done. I will react this way so they won't be surprised. And here's the reasons why I react that way. So in the future, I'm asking you to do this. Okay, practice that. Because then you're in control and they know exactly where you're coming from. Sorry, somebody had. And some think they know what the other person will say, not open-minded. Absolutely right, Lisa Marie. You have already preconceived notions of how the person is going to react and respond. No, you have to be open-minded. So practice this. Even practice on your kids or whomever you want to practice it with. Okay. So if you have a customer that's not the nicest customer, you may want to practice this with them also. Practice it and try it. Then it becomes natural for you to do that. So remember, you can only change yourself. You cannot change other people. You can tell someone you have to change. People won't change unless they see they need to. So work on yourself. What is your part in this conflict? What part did you play? Okay, questions to ask yourself when you find yourself caught in a conflict. What is the conflict? Who are the players? Is this conflict resolved? What are the benefits of having this conflict? If this conflict isn't resolved, what are the payoffs or benefits for me? Okay. If the conflict is not resolved, what harm can follow? Really important question to ask. If this conflict is resolved, will the benefit create a better situation than before the conflict arose? So when this conflict is resolved, will the outcome be better than it was before we looked at this conflict? Whatever the conflict is, can I see that the conflict adds a positive dimension to the potential outcome and enforces our relationships and builds a stronger relationship? If you need to head out, we will be posting a recording. So go ahead. I'm almost done. Sorry for the time. Okay, I'll finish here. I'm just going to leave this chart. So what I ask you to do then is there anything, refer to your example that you wrote out at the beginning. If there's anything that you could have done differently to handle the situation, write it out. Okay, so I'm looking at the time. Thank you very much. I hope you found this informative for yourself, but I encourage you to work on your